Rosé, show me your burgers!
Before I start, I just wanted to give Diana a token of my appreciation for all that she has done.
Don't do it!
And we all know that she actually wanted this to be an Oscar themed reading. So I don't have an Oscar, but what I do have is a Sandusky Award. It comes with 2 pieces. Is that too soon?
I like it.
Anyways, this was actually her birthday gift, which was actually like 2 months ago, and she's so fucking lazy that she hasn't come to pick it up from my house.
Awkward.
Remember I made you a birthday?
Yeah. Read your poems.
So this first poem requires some audience participation. So if
Awkward.
you guys know how to count backwards from 10, that'd be great.
10.
Dish.
10.
Dish. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Happy New Year! Amazing how the countdown can sneak up on a beach full of millions of people. 1 minute there is dancing and drinking and sand between your sole and your sandal, and the next you are counting. You probably start counting late, like at 8, if you were anything like me. And then the fireworks start exploding, 45 minutes of fireworks. Between the shockwaves that ripple the beach, you realize that the oohs and ahs of a crowd are a universal sound. Then just when you think the fireworks are never going to end, the fireworks finally end. And when they finally end, you are left dancing to the light of the candles dug into holes on the beach. You jump 7 waves and throw flowers into the sea. You make a wish. If you were anything like me, that wish is to sleep with a Brazilian girl that night. But your wish will not come true if you were anything like me. Your flowers will float in the surf and be dragged out and then spit up on shore repeatedly until they are just floppy, saturated petals. The stalks of your flowers will sink, and little lily-white rafts of floppy, saturated petals will wash up a few hundred yards down the beach from your wish. The next day, the petals will stick to your feet, to your sandals, to the saturated, spent cases of fireworks shells, will fill the holes dug for the now-spent candles. Soon the petals will dissolve or be buried in the sand and then dissolve. When the last of the petals dissolve, the beach full of people and petals will return to just being a beach full of people.
Woo! Woo!
Get it, girl.
Rosé!
This next poem is about sunsets. It's time to get real about sunsets. I find each one a bit less impressive. Even if the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, it's still the same star the entire time. The range and temperature of colors is due to atmospheric variations and man-made pollutants. Yet no one writes poems for the ozone, for the industrialists and their belching smokestacks. The sunset is framed by the angle and refraction of light off of objects. Yet the toothy glow provided by the mountains, the golden mirror projected by the ocean, the darkened stillness afforded by the forest are all robbed of credit on a daily basis. Sentiment comes from hormonal secretions, a series of chemical reactions as old as single-celled organisms. Still, we plant our praise squarely on the crest of the dissipating horizon. Furthermore, without the sunrise dragging itself out of bed and over midday, the sunset is impossible. However, we prefer to remain safely asleep, the sunset being much more convenient. We seem to be satisfied to take the sunrise for granted and praise the sanctity of the sunset. I say it's time to get real about sunsets. So this next poem comes from like a section of letters to poets, and this one's to Nicanor Parra. And if you don't know him, you should check it out. He's a Chilean poet, father of anti-poetry. Dear Nicanor, I recently stopped banging my head against the wall. My ears are still ringing. There is a bruise on my forehead in the shape of an atomic bomb. However, since the mark and the bells are finally starting to fade, I guess I owe you this letter. I imagine you falling asleep in your chair while reading this. I owe you a great deal more than a letter. I was working on a list of reasons you haven't won a Nobel Prize. I too fell asleep, and the list flew off the table and onto the carpet. A dog picked it up and ran away for good. I have never owned a dog, and if I did, it would be dark black with pointy ears and sad eyes. It wouldn't be anything fancy or know any tricks. He'd lie on his side on the carpet and stare into space while I wrote letters to poets. Then he'd chew them up and run away. Poems are more at home in a fresh pile of dog shit than on the table. I arrived at this conclusion independently, but was surprised when the dog agreed. Anyways, I hope this anti-poem finds you doing well. I hope the Nobel Committee steps in a steaming pile of dog shit. Perhaps they're dog owners. Perhaps they frequently check the bottoms of their shoes. Perhaps what is truly worthy must be obscured and then extracted. My fingers are ever crossed. Un abrazo, a young poet. This next poem is called Ode to the Chitudo, and it's after Pablo Neruda, and it's about a sandwich. Ode to the Chitudo. Chitudo, luminous with grease, your beauty formed layer by layer, your various meats sweating oil, the runniness of your fried egg, the bread growing soft with condiment. In a makeshift stand, the miracle happened when the deft hands began by cutting a bun and your layers were stacked like a deck of cards at the casino. Man showed his true power through the transparency of the paper covered in drippings, the lifting of the breast of Odysseia, the duplicating striations of the earth to make you, Chitudo, complete and faded to satisfy, constant as the landscape, fat rows of calories in the hand of the hungry. You make us full without emptying our wallets. I have been cynical about everything that exists, but to me, Chitudo, you are more beautiful than a butterfly of outrageous colors. A heavenly puck, a golden morsel, a silent but savory quartet of the cow, pig, chicken, and earth, and the fragrance of the street lives in your high-protein nature.
High protein!
The sea is an endless sameness, interrupted by brief signs of life, coastlines, birds, whales, boatwakes. I sat on the side of the boat reading, watched the 5 or 6 foot swells raise and lower the ship. There were fins and waterspouts in the distance, or maybe they weren't really whales, but I really wanted to see whales, so I saw fins and waterspouts in the distance. Either way, I saw something. And I thought I could live a life at sea, just focusing on the way the sea was dark and churning out frothy streaks of bubbles that turned white because they were emptied of water and filled with light. I didn't really think that. I thought, I wonder what happens to the bubbles at night. I forgot the bubbles that night and got salty taking shots out of the cap of a liquor bottle. I screamed at the seagulls resting on the railing of the boat. I danced with and swore at everyone. I punched Steve Perkins so hard in the face that I started to think I could really lead a life at sea. In the morning, the cruise was over. I walked onto dry land holding both handrails. I could still feel the up and down, the side to side. All right, one more.
Go in, poet!
Oh, he's so cool drinking from that flask.
Fuck you, Trump. He was in Argentina. Her name was Maria, and her eyes were 2 hazel moons pecked with celestial impacts. She was beautiful in a delicate and fragile way, and she kept talking about cocaine. I thought if I bought her cocaine, she would sleep with me. We walked along, just us two, under the palms, escorted by so many butterflies. There was a man against the tiny wall on the sidewalk that passed the local bank. He wore a frayed hat, had frayed hair, and missing and pointed teeth. His brown eyes did not sparkle, but he knew what she wanted. We paraded around town, just us 3, whistling at taxis, waving, pointing, spinning in circles, finally stopping at a bar, La Buena Onda, with red plastic tables and chairs, the kind molded to stack perfectly. I sat staring deep into Maria's eyes. Her lip quivered with fear as the man smacked around a 9-year-old boy who sat playing with a knife. The hot, moist air, the clothes sticking to our skin, The bar's quiet solitude was not at all romantic. In the same way, the chalky powder that made us sneeze, that burned our noses and throats, was not at all cocaine. Before we left, our guide offered me meth. From the bottom of my heart, he said, there was something so touching in how he poked his dirty finger into his chest.